With thousands of gallons of fuel still in the wings, the Lancaster could explode at any minute.
And to my father at that moment, it was quite clear what needed to be done and that he was the man to do it. It was his job. He was the flight engineer. It was nobody else's on that aeroplane, it was his.
Good morning, everybody. You join me at another disused RAF runway. We are at RAF Metheringham, which was home to the 106 Squadron. And a member of that crew did an act of bravery, which is often cited as the bravest act of World War II, which is a strong statement. And he took flight from this RAF base. And I will tell you that story very soon. But I will tell you a little bit about this RAF base. This is RAF Metheringham, operational from 1943 to 1946, not very long. It is slap bang in the middle of RAF Coningsby and RAF Waddington, probably to this day the two biggest RAF bases in Lincolnshire, and we still have plenty of those. Now, what's interesting about this RAF base, apart from the story of insane bravery, was it was one of only 15 RAF bases that had fog, investigation and dispersal operation, Fido to you and me. Now, you got to remember, 1940s England was incredibly different. Coal fires, lots of people had coal fires. There was a fog and a smut in English air that probably was came to head most famously with the Great Smog of London of 1952, I believe. I can be corrected. And so when people were battling in war and they were coming back, sometimes they couldn't land. There was nowhere to land because it was just such a thick fog. No runway lights would burn through it. So they created Fido. Now, Fido basically illuminated the runways, and it said they could be seen for miles. And initially it would bring a puff of smoke that would add to the intense fog, but after a few moments it would burn away all the fog. And it is said that if you were on a runway like this, that you could look up and you could see the stars perfectly. It was that effective. Only 15 of these RAF bases, had this Fido. This was one of them. And I think only 3 in Lincolnshire had them. And look at this bit of footage I found. From the original RAF promotion video of Fido, RAF Metheringham was featured. This barren land. Unfortunately, when you grow up in this area, what this RAF base is known for is learning to drive. Everybody comes here to learn to drive. Many hours of my life on this runway learning to drive. I first ever drove a car on this runway. But it was home to Fido, very interesting. And I'm not an expert, but maybe this strip of line. I've got a pointy microphone, so you can only hear me if I speak into the camera. This line that runs all the way down, as you can see, and I don't know, but it would make sense that this would be the line that would one day, many years ago, burn, it said, 100,000 gallons of fuel an hour. So ridiculously costly. A Fido, of course, doesn't make it into the modern world. It wasn't a thing after the war. Never been used since. It just burns so much. Of course, well, in the days of travel, I'm sure we've all been stuck on a runway because of weather. That's what happens now. If they're landing and it's too foggy, they'll just go to another runway. Fido did not make it out of the war. But I'm going to show you the memorial at this RAF base for the 106 Squadron, and I will then tell you the story of the heroic Norman Jackson. So Norman Jackson on the 24th of April 1944 was here at RAF Metheringham. He had done all of his 30 missions, and that is all you were required to do in the RAF. But the rest of his crew had one more to do, and an operation came out to bomb at Swineford. So he went to do this one last mission, and then he was done. They successfully bombed Swineford, but coming back they were fired at by night fighters and the engine caught fire. Now Norman Jackson was the most experienced and an engineer, and he knew the only way that his crew were going to get home that night was if he put out the fire. He felt, as he was the most experienced, he had to go and do it. So at over 20,000 feet in the air and travelling at over 200 miles per hour, Norman Jackson climbed out the roof of the Lancaster, down the side of the cockpit, and crawled along the wing of the plane to put out the fire. He was attempting to put it out, and then the flames were obviously gushing back and severely burnt his face and hands. And at this point the night fighter came back and fired again at the plane and fired 2 bullets into each of Norman Jackson's legs, which sent him off the plane and tumbling 20,000 feet to the ground. The parachute was incredibly damaged by the fire, but it worked enough to not kill him on landing. He broke a few bones in his legs, and he survived the night on the ground. He crawled to a nearby German village, and he was then a prisoner of war.
With his 2 broken ankles, with his leg shot up, with his shoulder wound, with his arm wound, his hands are badly burned. I mean, this is a guy who's in an extremely bad shape.
During this time, my father was never unconscious. He was conscious the whole time.
He spent over 10 months in hospital, and he was at 9C. I think that was the prison of war camp he was in. I might have that wrong. I'm just wrong.
Higgins!
They saw some RAF uniform on this person on the trolley, and I went over to him and realised it was my father and couldn't believe that he was still alive.
Oh my God, it's Jackson!
He had tried to escape twice. On the second attempt he was successful in his escape, and he met up with an American army from South Carolina, I can't remember the number, and he was sent back to England. And it was only this story wasn't known until about a year later. Then the rest of his crew were 2 died, 4 survived. They were prisoners of war, and they told everybody what he had done, and he became this hero. Of course, rightly so. Now, he was, of course, awarded the Victoria Cross, and when he was accepting his Victoria Cross, he was behind, I think his name was Leonard Cheshire, who was much more superior in rank. And as it goes, more superior go and get your award first. And he said, no, this man behind me, Norman Jackson, his Victoria Cross means more than mine for what he did. It's cool.
He felt that he didn't do anything that anybody else would have not done.
Jackson was one of 19 Victoria Crosses awarded to Bomber Command during World War II. But yet, nearly 150,000 men flew over the skies of Europe, and 55,000 were eventually killed in the process. This is collective bravery of a group of men.
I can't imagine I can't imagine the bravery that takes. I mean, he was the most experienced. I imagine it was easy enough just to pass that job along. I mean, but no, he took on the job. The insane bravery of World War II by millions of people cannot be overestimated, but it is said to be the bravest act. But the night started from here. There's no buildings or anything left from this RAF base. There are a few over in the trees over there. They are on private property and they look like shells. And I mean, I've been coming to this RAF base for years and I've never noticed them, so I don't think they're that interesting. Well, they probably are, but I don't think it's worth the risk to be going over into somebody's land. Norman Jackson's legacy lives on. He's from London. He is buried in Twickenham Cemetery. I will take this time to say, please like and subscribe to my channel. When I am out of lockdown, I'm hoping things like this. There's a heritage centre over there, and I could go down to Twickenham and see the cemetery and even his Victoria Crosses in the Imperial War Museum, and things like that I would be able to do, so this channel might get more adventurous in the future. He lived out the rest of his life as a whiskey seller for Hague Whiskey. I'm not sure who they are. And he's remembered in his home city in London. He has like a village centre named after him, and he is remembered in the stories of World War II for his insane bravery. He died on the 26th of March 1994. He has 6 children. He, with the rest of his squadron, are remembered just here. And there's a heritage centre back there for the 106 Squadron. Just another story of insane bravery of World War II, and probably the most crazy story of bravery. Thank you so much for watching. It's Saturday night. I'm hungry. Have a nice night. Bye bye.
The tale of young men like Jackson and Mifflin who risked and lost their lives flying bombers over Germany has been largely forgotten. Now, the airmen's vital contribution to defeating the Nazis is being recognized. In 2012, the long-overlooked men of Bomber Command are finally honored with a memorial in London dedicated to those who served, survived, and lost their lives.